Hey, everybody out there on YouTube. Welcome to the pre-show cocktail hour. I'm Jay. That's Aaron.
Hello.
And that's Tony.
Hello, hello.
And I forgot to do the clap. We didn't do that.
Yeah, I was going to ask, but
let's go ahead and do the clap.
We'll do it. Fuck it. We'll do it live.
We'll do it live. All right, I'll count you down from 5 and then we'll clap. So, perfect. All right, welcome back to the pre-show cocktail hour. Just before we got on the mics, we were talking about the writers' strike, which has just begun within the last couple of weeks. So, Aaron, you were telling us about how this is intersecting with the future.
Well, I was reminiscing and thinking back to college era, whenever the writer's strike happened previously, and a lot of shows that I enjoyed got canceled or disrupted. And I had heard, one of the big wigs in one of the studios, I assume at the same time chewing on a cigar with like cash falling out of his pocket as he walked, was saying that they have a lot of content in the pipeline, so the average consumer's not going to notice anything for a while. So I started thinking kind of about that as, okay, kind of holistically, the difference between the last writer's strike in 2008? Does that time period sound about right? 2007?
Yeah. 2007, 2008.
The difference between then and now is like how much competition there is for like television type media. You have the rise of YouTube and all the streaming content, Twitch, stuff like that. You have like non-conventional content where people are making stuff that don't need writers, and at the same time you have Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, all of the stuff that's out there that is essentially like the entire catalog of human history of media and content, that if something new's not coming out, that doesn't mean that people don't have anything to watch. They're just going to go watch other stuff that's already out. So, whereas last time you had to wait like 4 or 5 days for your Netflix disc to arrive in the mail back in 2007. So, I think that this time the writer's strike is going to have a bit more of an uphill battle. And again, just as you were saying before, the show, this doesn't even touch on AI then beginning to write the next, era of content and just cutting out writers altogether, right?
Yeah, exactly. And apparently that's one of the big sticking points in this negotiation is how ChatGPT and how AI will play in here. Because what the writers are afraid of are a couple of things. One being that the studios will be able to just feed their past work into an AI system and have it pump out something in that style. Mm-hmm. And two, that the writer's job will essentially just go away, where the studio will have the AI write the script and then they'll come to a human writer and say, punch it up, but I'm only going to pay you 10% of what I would have paid you to create it from scratch.
Whenever AI first started emerging, the thing that I heard people say is AI is not going to replace you. A person using AI is going to replace you and like 16 other people. And I think that that's just really what's going on here. And again, I am torn because part of me is like, yeah, people need fulfillment through doing something like writing and being creative. But I also recognize in the era of mass content, capital is always going to the least, cost, right? And if they can essentially take an entire show, load it into an AI and say, write us 16 more seasons of it, they're gonna, So I don't know what's going to happen. I think you're going to have this situation where there's always going to be a premium on human crafted works, and the kind of like reality television of the future is going to be AI generated art, right? Like it's the stuff that can be mass produced, that anybody can watch and consume. They don't have to think too hard about it. It doesn't have to be too good, but it can be on in the background. It can be the shit that, like the people who put on The Office 1,000 times, right? Or Parks and Rec or Brooklyn Nine-Nine or whatever, right? Like it's clear you don't have to have something people pay attention to every second of every day. AI generated content in the future probably is going to fit that niche.
Yeah, it's crazy to think like all the AI voice stuff that's going on right now. It's like
It's nuts.
Probably, especially in video games, like you don't need voice actors maybe even anymore.
I mean, what is it? Disney purchased the rights to Darth Vader's voice, James Earl Jones, for basically commercial purposes in the future. So they now can just load up his voice into the AI. Darth Vader's taken care of, to infinity and beyond.
And like it's still Uncanny Valley because faces are so hard to do, but we're closing that Uncanny Valley gap in like especially like the de-aging stuff. It's like it's getting pretty close. It's still uncanny, but
the AI generation of images is grown so much over the last 7 months. It's insane to see where it was 7 months ago and where it is now. What is crazy is that I remember seeing the very first text to video AI generated stuff where they were telling the AI to generate video and it was really choppy, blocky stuff. I'm now seeing AI generated beer commercial, AI generated Will Smith eats bowl of spaghetti. And it's surreal. It's something that like slowly evolves into a David Lynch film, but it's, it's starting to become real. Like you go watch the AI generated beer commercial. If you haven't watched it already, it just feels like a Saturday Night Live kind of like off kilter beer commercial at first. And then people start having like multiple arms and things like that. It gets weird. But that's only gonna be a matter of time until those types of issues are fine tuned out of, the equation.
Well, still images, like I can't even tell like an AI generated person from a real person. Like I've seen a bunch of things like they tell it to create a college student from Texas A&M or something.
Yep.
And it just like makes somebody. And I'm like, I can't tell if that's a real person or not. So I guess you can just like, probably in the future, you can design an actor or actress exactly how you want them to look to fit the role. And then I guess by that time, AI will write a script and then the AI voice will just read the script for you. So I don't know.
And animate it. And think about like, okay, you want to make a comic. You have an idea for a comic. You get the AI to develop a comic character. You tell the AI that that's the character. You then say, design a comic cell, put that character in it. And it does open up new forms and methods of art. It's just going to delete or decimate other ones because you're not going to need 12 writers. You're going to need 2. You're not going to need 30 animators. You're going to need 3, and it's the same thing that happened when it went from the horse and buggy to the car to whatever.
Hence the word sabotage.
Right? A lot of jobs disappeared. But that, unfortunately, is kind of the inevitable march of progression in technology.
Yeah, that's why we're going to have to do something like, I don't know the logistics of it, but I mean, that universal basic income is going to have to, like something similar to that's going to have to exist.
Oh, for sure. I love how this is how we're starting off the Bluey conversation. Is like deep dive into the like socioeconomic dystopia that's coming with AI.
They came for the writers and I said nothing.
Too good.
Like surely AI can make y'all's like finding legal precedents and like surely that can make it way easier for y'all to like find those types of things, arguments.
I honestly believe that me and Jay have talked about this, that they're going to be able to replace like police officers with like AI run by robots. Because I saw a video today, it's nuts, where like they have a robot running around shooting and doing a whole bunch of like military stuff. And it's like a person running up, smashing it with a chair, hitting it, releasing bees on it. Like it has no reaction, right? It doesn't flinch. It doesn't get scared. It doesn't freak out. It just continues on with the mission. And I'm like, and it's the Boston Dynamics robot, the one that's been doing backflips and all that stuff. They've now given it a gun and are training it to run around and shoot things. Oh, so wow. It's wild to watch. They're tackling it. They're pushing it. They're trying to disrupt it while it's doing its thing. And it's wild. So, and it was able to like see people raised hands, like surrendering and like evaluate the threat and move on. It was crazy. So that's the future, man.
Everything that happens in the biotic wars is real. The biotics, the wars, everything.
That's all that stuff is coming, and judges, lawyers. I mean, imagine, a judge deciding stuff and it's an AI. It has all of the case law available to it, makes the right decision, minimizes how many appeals have to be made. It's coming.
That part of it sounds great.
That part sounds great. Yeah, right. It's going to make our lives easier. And then we're not needed because just the average citizen walks in and just says, here's my issue. Well, you don't need a lawyer because the AI knows the law.
Yeah.
You're right. You're wrong.
It's exciting and scary at the same time. We'll see how it goes.
Well, you guys ready to get into Bluey?
Absolutely.
Let's do it.
You didn't even say what cocktail you were having.
Oh, shit. Yeah. So I made it's an Australian mocktail. It's a lemon and lime and bitters. It's lemon lime soda, so your Sprites or your 7-Ups. And then you put some lime juice in that, and then you top it with a couple of dashes of aromatic bitters. And it is very refreshing.
Very nice.
And then you pour in a Foster's and make it a Radler.
Yeah, exactly.
I've heard that Foster's is Australian for beer, but that may have only been in the mid-2000s.
Previously on the show.
What have you been watching? What you guys been doing since we convened on the Righteous Gemstones?
Going around, getting a bunch of aliens in a ship and going around doing missions.
But yeah, I went Necro.
I want to hear more about that.
Jay, what about you?
I don't know about you, but my reaction in that moment was, they can't possibly do this. And then they did it.
Yeah, that's what humans would do. We're pieces of shit.
I think it's a fair criticism.
And they showed us the dentist bug, but where's like the bug that cuts your hair to look exactly the same for 7 months on a spaceship?
Why do Romulans speak English? Jay, could you explain that one to me?
Yeah, they're too lemony and not that much limey.
Hey, these people are fascists and I don't want to do their bidding anymore.
Do you remember the Sierra Mist commercials? Like the ones back in the early 2000s, maybe?
I'm like, this is a big dude and he's jacked. You can see his deep V the whole time.
I'm your daddy.
Man, I miss Quiznos.
Oh, I miss Quiznos too.
Prime rib and peppercorn on rosemary. Ooh.
Classic Italian.
I have definitely learned way more about black holes in the last week because, I'm interested in them for some reason.
Hello, and welcome to the Show, probably the world's best TV review podcast. Welcome to episode 59. Today, we review selected episodes of the 2018 series from the Australian Broadcasting Corporation. It's just monkeys singing songs, mate. This month on the Show, Bluey. I'd like to welcome you inside the broadcast booth. I'm Jay. I'm joined, as always, by my two Hall of Famers. To my right, the Telemachus to my Snowdrop, the Burt Handsome to my Romeo McFlourish. It's Aaron.
Heyo.
And to my left, past the fake grass, if you got a flamingo, you've gone too far. It's Tony.
Hello.
G'day, gentlemen, and happy Stumpfest.
Happy Stumpfest.
Check out our Instagram for news about the show, including our postponed 2023 tour and cruise, along with plenty of other bonus content. You can find us at the Show Pod. Send your emails to the Show TV Podcast at gmail.com. You can find us on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, Mandamus Radio. You can find me individually at J Suesponte. Aaron, where can we find you?
As long as it exists, the Musco-verse at Tenacious Aaron.
How about you, Tony?
Find me on Instagram at tpinquite.
All right, before we head down under and talk about that lovely healer family from Brisbane, let's take a little trip over to the unofficial scoreboard since the last time we convened to talk about Farscape. Anything for the unofficial scoreboard, Tony?
I can't say that I have anything. Been watching a lot of mid-tier anime. Nothing good enough to speak about. I mean, I know there's some great anime this season, but I haven't watched it yet. I'm gonna binge it once the season's over. But I haven't been to movies or anything lately. I've been kind of a bum since our last podcast.
Fair enough. How about you, Aaron?
I've been doing a couple of different things. Number one, been continuing to watch Animal Control. I think I dabbled a little bit in it last time.
Okay.
With Joel McHale. I'm enjoying it. It's not just the Joel McHale hour. It's interesting, though, kind of segue, the boss in that show is also in Mr. Mayor, which I've just recently picked up, started watching.
Yes.
Thoroughly enjoy Mr. Mayor. It's like Parks and Rec, except for it takes it like that step further, being ridiculous and actually being ridiculous. Right? I feel like Parks and Rec always threatened being ridiculous, but at the end, everybody kind of pulled back. But this one feels like everything is, here's the line, we're now going to cross it, and that's the joke.
Yeah.
And so I've had a lot of fun watching that. I watched The Glass Onion, which is that Netflix Knives Out series movie. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed everyone's performance. It was a fun movie. It's worth watching. Recently, me and a buddy have gone back to playing Final Fantasy XIV, which is the Weeb game, and I'm having fun. I'm having fun enjoying it. It is
That's the MMO one, right?
It's the MMO one. We finished the first game, which is universally known as a slog. And like I had to pay $11 to skip the last 10 hours. I was just so done with the game. It was just run here, talk to these people, run here, talk to these people, run here, talk to these people, wait, one fight, run here, talk to these people. And I was just like, I'm done with this. So we've now moved on to the second game and are kind of leveling up some new classes and having fun doing that. But it's kind of weird because it feels like there's a bunch of games and stuff in development and people talking about things, but I don't feel like there's any exciting games out right now. Like it feels kind of boring right now.
I've been looking for a new one. I was hoping Redfall would be good, and then apparently it's a dumpster fire. Like, I just want a game to play, like some co-op multiplayer.
Have you seen that Chrono Odyssey trailer yet?
I have not.
You should watch the Chrono Odyssey trailer. It's an MMO, but it looks like it's an action MMO, like where you're like running around swinging swords and things like that, actually hitting stuff and hitboxes.
Oh, is that Genshin Impact like sequel or something?
I don't know.
Is it a mobile game?
No, it's not a mobile game. It's pretty impressive trailer. If everything in that is actual gameplay, then color me impressed.
Jay, I'm up to Diamond in Rocket League now, if you want to come back.
Oh, nice. I've never been able to stay at Diamond. I would flirt with it every once in a while.
I can't get up to Champ. Just like I get up to Diamond 3 sometimes, and then it's just like Smurf City. All the champs and higher go down there to relax and beat up on sucky players like me.
Gosh, I haven't played Rocket League in so long. I ought to jump on there and play with you sometime.
I can hit the ball.
What have you been up to?
Well, what have I been up to?
Yeah, what's on your unofficial scoreboard?
I've been watching a whole lot of a show called Gravity Falls.
Okay,
so
on Hulu?
It's a bit of a unofficial scoreboard kids show edition because it's mostly a show that my kid watches. But Gravity Falls, it's from like 2013-ish. It aired on Disney XD, and it's aimed at kids who are, I think, like middle school-ish aged. And it's really to really reduce it into just a couple of words, it's Twin Peaks for kids. Because it's a quirky town in the Pacific Northwest where weird, unexplained things happen, and there's mysteries, and it's a whole lot of fun. It's very funny. So if anybody is looking for an animated series that's a whole lot of fun and not a huge commitment, Gravity Falls, it's only about, I think, like 40-ish episodes.
Okay, no, that's a great recommendation. I've seen it come up a couple of times, and I didn't know. It looks like one of those shows made by the Rick and Morty creators. He's got like 6 or 7 shows out there now. Mm-hmm. So I didn't know if that was one of them or not. I know Solar Opposites is one of his.
Right. Yeah, it's not a Justin Roiland show. He does have a recurring character on Gravity Falls, but it's done by a different creator.
Okay.
But yeah, check that one out. A non-kid show I've been watching on Amazon is Jury Duty. And this is a show that's made a lot of waves.
Heard crazy things about that, yeah.
Yeah, everyone's raving about it right now.
Because it's a very unique blend of scripted and reality, where if you haven't heard, the premise is that they did a whole trial. It's a civil trial, but they did a whole trial, and all of it was coordinated. All of it was actors, except for one guy who thought it was a real thing and was on the jury. And so you follow him, and ridiculous things happen. James Marsden plays himself having to be on jury duty. I've watched about half of it, and it's been a whole ton of fun. Only downside being that there's no way to watch it without ads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a part of this new free V return us back to the ads era of television.
Yes.
Like that Amazon's doing. It's so funny how we've come full circle, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's nuts.
Like, I don't know how you guys typically consume your television mechanically, but by that I mean I usually watch it on my TV in my living room through a Roku device.
Yep.
And so when you pull up the Roku, there's your channels, the different apps on one side, and then often there's a little ad for whatever on the Roku channel. And a couple weeks ago, I was making a remark to my lady wife where I was saying, man, that Roku channel, it's almost like the new Nick at Night, where everything that it advertises is all this stuff that you're like, who the hell wants to watch that?
That was so last season.
That was so last season. And God damn it, if not the next time I turned on my TV, it was advertising Peep Show, my favorite show of all time.
Yeah.
So I was like, screw you, Roku channel.
No, but this is a phenomenon that is just a time phenomenon, right? Like, remember back in 2003 listening to the classic rock station on the radio, and then just a few years later they're playing like, you know, Nirvana and, you know, stuff like that on the classic rock station. Like, we're coming to a time where Disturbed and Slipknot are going to be played on the classic rock station, right? Like, it doesn't ever stop. Like that progression, that march of time. So, like, at some point, you're right. Peep Show's going to be like I Love Lucy. You know, people be like, oh, Granddad, that show's old. That's not even in, you know, hologram.
Oh, it makes me sad. But yeah, check out Jury Duty. For you guys, the two of you who are a little adverse to cringe, there is a lot of cringe to it. And part of the reason why is that the creator of Jury Duty is an ex-writer from The Office. And when you look up his writing credits, it's all of like it's a lot of the later stuff, but it's like the dinner party episode, Scott's Tots, like
Scott's
like the hardest episodes,
like really funny stuff, but like it makes you cringe. So keep that in mind before diving into Jury Duty.
Understand? I mean, I can't escape it. It's a part of modern comedy. So
speaking of music, I actually had this realization just the other day with my friend's daughter. I guess it'll be for your kids too, Jay. Like, they'll always have, I mean, as long as their cell phones, they know, which there probably will be everywhere once they get cell phones, like, they'll have access to whatever songs they want to listen to at any time that they want from like one device. There won't ever be like tapes or CDs or even like an offline MP3 player where you're like having to like choose. You just get to have it at all times. So it'd be the same with like TV and stuff. You'll always be able to stream whatever show you want to watch, like whenever.
Philosophically, this raises the universal culture problem, right? Like, everybody who's creating something new, all the new musicians have to compete with the Beatles, Led Zeppelin, you know, Britney Spears, you know, Tupac, Jay-Z. Like, it's all at their fingertips, right? So it's not like when we were growing up and new music kind of got its own channels, right?
It's true, like the meme about you never discovering new music once you get to a certain age. But it's like, I never turn on the radio at all in my car. Like, why would I listen to something random when I can choose?
Yep. Spotify does a good job, if you listen to playlists, of blending you on into music that is like what you were listening to. And I have found more new music or been exposed to more new music that way. But it kind of is real limited to that. kind of sound, you know, like listening to Pearl Jam, and everything that comes up is something that sounds like Pearl Jam. So,
well, speaking of things that are worldwide and you cannot escape, you guys want to talk Bluey?
Absolutely.
So we have gathered here today to discuss that little blue dog, Bluey. It's a children's TV show from Australia by the Ludo Studios, centering around a family of anthropomorphic dogs who live in Brisbane, Australia. To kind of go around the horn of our characters, because this is definitely, I would say, a character rather than plot-driven show. We have Bluey, our centerpiece, a precocious 6-year-old who loves to play pretend. We have her sister, Bingo, 4 years old. Bingo is a little more introverted and empathetic than Bluey is. We have Bandit, the dad. He is an archaeologist with the world's most flexible hybrid work schedule. We have Chili, the mum. Chili works part-time doing airport security. Also in the family, we have Uncle Stripe, Bandit's younger brother, his wife Trixie. They are parents to the quintessentially bratty toddler Muffin. They also have a baby Socks. Bandit also has an older brother Rad, who works on an oil rig. Next door, we have a family of Labradors. Pat, also known as Lucky's dad. He's the one who's stuck in the 80s, but would be an amazing improv partner because he's always rolling with the crazy games they're playing.
La 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 la.
Boom! Detective Michael Scott! I'm with the FBI!
And then on the other side, we have a pair of Chow Chows, Judo and Wendy. So I kind of wanted to start there with the characters of this show. Any that I named, any that I didn't name that stuck out to you guys?
Not particularly. There were a lot of things. Since I do not have kids, and watching this was a very unique experience for me. And as you said, it is character driven, but a lot of the character driven story is kind of from the primary family's perspective. There's a lot of interaction. There's a few offshoot stories where it's just another family or another, kid or something like that their story is explored. But I guess for me, the first 2 seasons felt very much driven by kind of Bluey and Bingo. I felt like the 3rd season felt a lot more driven by the whole family. I don't know if you get that vibe at all, but I definitely felt like there was a change up in the 3rd season. And kind of a lot more interaction with mom and dad on a different level. But with the characters that did stick out, Muffin stuck out because of how ridiculous she was. Lucky's dad stuck out specifically because of Lucky's dad's rules. And I'm trying to think. The one, I can't remember the name, but the kid who had like ADHD and couldn't do anything, but then
Jack Russell?
Jack Russell Terrier, yeah. And then he was doing the military stuff. Like the capturing of a lot of the way kids play, I thought the show did a good job of giving realistic feeling to a lot of real ways kids play. And that's what I will say the show did an amazing job at, is capturing families and stuff like that. It also got really annoying how much laughing and giggling and stuff happened at certain levels, just because it was just like, oh, God damn it. Come on. Can we move on?
Yeah, I feel you. As a parent of a toddler, that kind of stuff just washes over you.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you say that, because that's not stuff that occurs to me.
Well, again, that's what I was saying is I kind of looked at it a little more sociological. I was like, okay, this is a good show. For families, this is good for kids. It's talking about empathy, but also there were things that I didn't like that it portrayed. There were moments where I was like, I don't like situations where things needed to get done and it felt like the parents were at the bay of the children's imagination. Yeah. There never felt like a time to stop playing. There never was a line. The show does
a water
not
hose to the face for an hour.
Yeah, there was never discussion of discipline, which I found really odd. There was some correction, But like, I don't know, there was never of like, hey, you've gone too far, you need to be disciplined. And again, I know that this is a modern show that doesn't really talk about that anymore. But there were situations that presented this show that I would have got whoopings growing up for.
It's definitely idealistic where the kids always realize the right thing to do and they do it on their own without being told
selfish.
To do it. Yeah.
Or like completely unaware that there is a right and wrong. Or that they have already realized why empathy is a thing that humans feel.
Yeah. Yeah. This show gets a lot of criticism for the parents in that they are impossible to live up to. That they're constantly engaged with the children, constantly validating their feelings and rolling with it in a way that in real life, a lot of people feel is just not able to, you're not able to live up to that. But you're completely right that the real unrealistic thing about this show is that the children immediately respond to the lesson. They absorb it and respond to it immediately. When that's really the hard part. Playing with your kid all day, that's not the hard part. Them learning the lesson, you know.
Bluey running in and out of the house while it's raining, pulling mud into the house. I would have had my ass beat. It would not have been mom comes out to join me in ruining clothing, toys, things like that for playtime. Like that's the situations where I'm sitting there and I'm like, this is sweet. This is cute. It's incredibly annoying to think that a kid's going to think, well, my mom and dad don't act like this. Like I love it because there are people like, oh, if you give your kid a spanking, they're going to have therapy. Apparently, if you don't go out and play in the dirt with your kid while it's raining, they're going to need therapy because they're going to see it in Bluey and be like, well, my parents mistreated me because they just didn't let me shit all over the house. So I know I'm probably being a little bit more based here. But
no, the first time I saw that episode, that's exactly the same reaction that I had. The way that Bluey like squeezes her way past the mom who's like almost like restraining her.
Yeah.
Where it's like it has been made abundantly clear how important it is that you don't trash this house and you still try to push past. Yeah, I would have had what my parents would call a belt party for doing something like that.
No, I mean, switches, that's what I had growing up. And it was the best punishment because there's no right choice. You get a small switch, it's awful. You get a big switch, it's awful. No leaves, awful. Bunch of leaves, awful. You go through all the iterations. Like, my mom made me pick the switch. Like, you think you can logic your way through this? No. Like, it's by the end of it, you're like, oh, it's all awful. There's no good answer. You just grab one, get it over with. But it's a brilliant technique of learning too, because you're like, okay, I've got some agency here.
Did you ever make the mistake of telling them, oh, that one didn't hurt?
I don't remember
Not
it if
more
I
than
did.
Yeah, right.
No, again, most of the time it was just like my mom would grab me by the hands, lift me up, and like be switching the back of my calves. Like it was just like a switch, and then all right, moving on.
Well, that kind of discipline not seen in Bluey.
Not seen in Bluey. Again, it's not in vogue in the modern time, right?
It might be a little bit of survivorship bias. Like, I feel like we're all pretty, not like intelligent people. Like, eventually, like, we probably all figured out it's not worth spanking. Or like you said, you just get it and you get it over with, and then it's like it's done. Like, you don't drag it out and like avoid it and cry about it. But I'm sure there's like plenty of kids and people that was not their experience with that kind of stuff. So I can see it both ways.
My sister, you could just look at her wrong and she just broke down crying, right? Like me, I needed the switch. I needed something to disrupt my thinking. So I think it comes down to the family and to the kid. But I again, like you were saying, I think that the image that the parents portray in the same way, I don't know if you remember this criticism whenever we were growing up, but like there were some people that weren't allowed to watch The Simpsons because people didn't like the way the parents were portrayed.
Oh yeah,
Like-
right here. I was one of those.
Okay, so yeah, the common understanding. So I almost could hear someone saying, "I don't let my kids watch Bluey because I don't like the parents' portrayal as like always having to indulge the kids, imagination and never being able to correct them, and then the kids having this unrealistic, acceptance of lessons and moral revelations and things like that." Because again, kids aren't like that.
Mm-hmm.
Especially like 4 and 6. That feels like an age group that would be really, really, really unreasonable.
Oh, definitely.
Are we definitely in dog years in this show? Because I'm like 6. This is a full-grown dog. Like, is it really like 10 months? Is a 10 months old dog if it's 6 years old?
Let's
Like,
go with that.
The age is part of it's kind of hard. Like, my brain couldn't comprehend the age part. And then, like,
I think it's just human years.
when they refer to a specific dog breed, like in that army one, it's like, go play with that red Kelpie over there. Is that the equivalent of saying, go play with that black guy over there? Is that like the dog equivalent? It's like a different, like, race of dog. It's like, hey, go play with, and then that kid's name was Jack Russell. Like, first name Jack, second name Russell, and he was a Jack Russell. It's like, go play with token white guy. I don't know, like...
Well, I mean, you're not wrong. I think breed is a little different than race, because race is a little bit more fabricated by white people. Let's also say, though, I think you're kind of right, though. That is a little bit of lazy naming to name the Jack Russell Terrier Jack Russell. That is kind of like naming baby.
Yeah. I just thought it was weird. It's like when you're calling out a specific like type of dog. It's like, I was like, what would be the equivalent of a human calling out a specific type of human? I'm like,
no, I think you've nailed it. But there was Rusty the red Kelpie, so
yeah,
that's not much better. I'm gonna be honest there.
Maybe think about it more like Tony. You've been to Iceland, right?
yeah.
And you know how in Iceland people don't really have last names because there's only like 6 families, and they've kind of left that all behind them long ago. Like that's kind of how I see the world of Bluey. Maybe it's not so much race as like families or clan. I don't want to use that word.
Breeds.
And I started
because that's what the healer. That's all that it is with them, right? Bingo, Bluey, Bandit, Healer.
Yeah.
That's the breed.
They're blue and orange healers.
So I guess that you could see his last name is Russell. I think his name should be Terrier, right?
The Terriers.
Well,
there's also the Terriers.
Yeah, there's also the Terriers, which...
What other animal... And what other... It was also... I'm getting like way too logical about this show.
No, you're right.
But it's like, what other animals in the world can talk besides dogs? Like, were those monkeys dogs dressed in monkey outfits in the movie? Or were they monkeys that could talk in the movie? Because like other animals don't seem to have the capacity for vocalization.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And only dogs are anthropomorphized.
Yeah, so like, were dogs dressed up in monkey outfits in that movie? Was it an animated movie? I can't tell the difference between an animated movie and real life because real life is animated.
Like, assuming it's a live action for the Bluey universe movie. That's a great point.
Yeah.
It's like Planet of the Apes, but it's like dogs.
Because cats are unsophisticated. They attack little birds that die at the vet. Little budgies. Little monsters.
There's definitely under the R Bluey. Are there other species in the Bluey universe? I just watched some episodes, and are there other animals? There's a monkey that didn't appear to be in costume. If so, are there other animals? We know that not cats are a lot of animals. And the first response is, you're looking way too hard into this. It's a kid's show about talking dogs. That's all there is to it.
And they're always talking about their hands, not their paws. Like, it's out of our hands.
Yeah.
Like, it shouldn't be out of our paws. Like, wiggle your... And fingers. You don't have fingers. All your things are feet and toes. Yeah.
Like, whenever they're wearing headphones, look at the placement of the headphones. They're, like, on their temples, not up where their ears are.
Yeah. So you don't have fingers. All you have are toes. All your feet are feet. There are no hands.
I mean, they're driving cars and buses.
Yeah, like, why is all the technology human technology that dogs are using?
Well, I mean, and they're also all naked, but they have underwear. right? There's other aspects of the universe that don't make a whole lot of sense. Like, why does anyone have laundry?
Yeah, when they went to the pool and they needed sunscreen, I'm like, what? For like their little bellies?
Well, it's also, Australia.
I want to say this. It was probably about 3 or 4 episodes in before I realized Bluey was a girl.
Oh yeah, I thought Bluey was a boy for a while.
Yeah, same here. I was like, oh, okay. That was just kind of dropped on us. Maybe we missed it in one of those episodes we skipped, but like there was a moment where I was like, oh, you're a girl.
I'm a girl.
Oh, yeah, I knew that.
Okay.
I think that's just part of the modernness of this show is just that, you know, it's a child and childs, listen to me, and children are kind of fundamentally the same depending on how you raise them. So like, Bluey's a girl, but like it doesn't matter. Like Bluey plays with what Bluey wants to play with.
I'm curious if people who had all sons and people who have all daughters would agree with that statement that raising children is fundamentally the same. Because all I know
is we gotta protect Bingo at all costs.
Bingo is adorable. I'm just saying, I know that there's a lot of people who are like, raising boys comes with different challenges at raising girls or whatever. I don't know. My mom said that I had different challenges that were presented than my sister. So, I don't know. Like, to me, I thought that was curious because I then wondered about if this was done with a boy and a girl, how would it be different? You know, like you said, maybe it wouldn't be different. Maybe they kind of made Bluey somewhat, I won't say androgynous, but, you know, able to play or do anything so that they could explore everything. But I don't know, like you even have the episodes where they just kind of like cut Bluey out, like with Jack Russell, and you kind of do the more boy stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So they kind of had to go away from Bluey altogether to explore some of the more boys will be boys type ideas and conversations. Now, again, the show is quasi progressive and conservative at times. Like I think that we've talked about this off the air, but like there's definitely some weird culture war stuff that fans out from the fact that a bunch of families watch this.
Right. And I think it's a little bit of a Rorschach test for a lot of people where conservatives will look at this and see a nuclear family, will see, you know, no divorce, 2 cisgendered adults who got married and started a family. That's, you know, kind of that's the Ronald Reagan dream. While progressives will look at this show and see what we were talking about, how the children are a little androgynous. They're allowed to do, you know, whatever they want to do, and they're not pigeonholed into any kind of gendered boxes. And the whole, really the vibe of the whole show is really just preaching emotional intelligence and empathy, which is kind of antithetical to the whole Ronald Reagan dream. So you see what you want to see, I guess.
People really see what they want to see when they're starting to make like miniature bandits with, you know, M16s, you know, printed onto it.
Gotta be done.
Oh my god.
Wild, and then painting them. Who has the time to 3D print a miniature bandit with the M16 and then paint it? Like that just is wild. But needless to say, you're right. It is a Rorschach test. You see what you want to see. But the question I have is, how do you not see the other stuff? Like, cause for me, I heard like Bandit, you know, oh, well, you only beat me because you cheated. You know, the kind of like traditional conservative, like, I don't even say conservative, but just more, you know, oh, not everybody needs to win. You know, it's okay to lose, that kind of stuff. That feels a little more conservative, but not like it sucks right now because the climate of our culture is that it feels if you say something is either progressive or conservative, then it's extreme, right? Those have become extreme like positions now. And really this is not an extreme position to say, hey, it's okay for kids to lose and to recognize that feeling bad and feeling good between wins and losses is a part of life. I actually, like, when I watched the episode, the Lucky's Dad's Rules, like, I kind of agreed with Lucky's Dad's rules. Like, I think that there is a reason, it means more when you don't always get something whenever there's kind of a prize that is the prize, right? Like there's that earning it. I guess like with me, I play World of Warcraft and we raid, and whenever we're grinding towards a boss and it takes us a couple of weeks, when we finally get that boss after losing over and over and over again, and you finally kill him, it's just like so much sweeter, right? Mm-hmm. Like there's that savor that you get to have, you know, of the experience. Whereas with every layer has something. Oh, okay, yeah, I didn't get the big prize, but I got this, so, you know, it's not that big a deal. Well, maybe that's kind of the point, is to get to experience that big deal, you know?
I think you see something similar to that in the episode early on, Shadowlands, where it's teaching the value of rules themselves. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, where Coco keeps trying to change the rules to make it easier for her, and you know, obviously that it ruins the game. It feels a little strange to say, but there are rules for a reason is kind of a right-wing sentiment.
Well, I think another way to look at that is restriction breeds creativity, right? Mm-hmm. When you're not allowed to just make it easy for yourself, you have to become more creative to solve your problems, right? And that's kind of what Bluey's whole indirect argument is that the fun of Shadowlands is trying to get to the end without touching the sunlight. If when you think you're stuck, you can just change the rules, you don't have to solve the problem.
Mm-hmm. I thought the ultimate episode, the moral of that episode was going to be something about compromise. But it ended up just like the universe supported their desire for cupcakes. I was like, okay, they're going to get to the end and they're going to be like, okay, sometimes you can't, like it's impossible within the rules. Like you're going to hurt yourself more than help yourself by playing this game absolutely to the letter. Like it's okay to like relax a little bit and go get some cupcakes, but no, just have a big cloud show up.
Deus Ex Claudia.
I liked that one though. The animation on this show is so good. It's like usually like you see a new show come out and it's like they don't have a ton of money in the first episodes, but like pretty much from episode 1 it was like crazy high quality on the show.
The episode with Muffin running with the tablet or phone from her dad is such a great episode. Just the different visual and artistic kind of like sequencing of that, I was impressed with. Like I was like, wow, this was well done.
Now, Muffin's another controversial character. So what was your impressions of Muffin?
Spoiled brat.
Tony?
Yeah.
So I guess what the controversy over Muffin is she just a toddler spoiled brat in that all children are sometimes brats, or was she over the top outrageous spoiled brat?
Over the top outrageous spoiled brat. If you get her the wrong toy, she's going to go ballistic. I mean, the kind of terminology around it was just accepting that she was spoiled, not that it was wrong for her to act that way. And I think the episode where she's running with the tablet, that's one of the discipline episodes where the problem with the story or Bluey here is that, in my opinion, the right answer for Muffin's future so that she has a better life is probably some discipline. Because if you allow her to keep on doing this, eventually there are people called police officers who will stop you from doing these types of things. And it's a lot worse when they get involved.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I like Muffin a lot because of the portrayal. I guess kind of similarly to the way that I liked Rigel, in that, you know, he wasn't a good guy, but he was
chaos
a very interesting character. And I think there's an interesting nuance with Muffin where we see that her parents, Stripe and Trixie, are a little bit different parenting style than we see with with Bandit and Chili. Mm-hmm. And so we see a little bit more of the, like, for example, oh, God damn it, I think we didn't watch that episode. There's an episode I think we didn't watch where Stripe runs a red light with Muffin in the car, and he's just like, oh, you know, special case, don't worry about it. Muffin, you're the most special girl in the world. And then Muffin goes on a terrible toddler tantrum where she's like, I'm special, I don't have to follow any rules. So there's some of this show where you see how the parenting then affects the kid, and that's a pretty good nuance. Did we watch? Oh, see, we should have watched all of it, of course. But did we watch the Dunny episode where they're all in the bed and they're arguing about whether or not they can use the word Dunny?
I don't remember that episode.
You know, I might have not included. That's another great one where the lesson of that one is that other families have different rules than yours. And that doesn't mean that their rules are wrong or that our rules are right. They're just different. And, you know, that's a very difficult thing for a 6-year-old to wrap their head around. But how many times when you got close to a friend, you had that difficult barrier of going over to their house and having to deal with their rules?
For sure. Like, I remember one time someone said, shut up at my house. My mom busted theirs. Like, nobody says that here. And that was such bullshit because everybody said shut up at my house. But like, like that's the funny thing too. Because I remember going over to other people's houses and being like, these are the rules. And it's like, oh, okay. Now I get in trouble. Well, don't break those rules. I'll tell you, here's a funny one about rules that's not true. And I love this kid to death. He's one of my favorite people in the world. But I had a friend, and I had a Sega Nomad back in the day, and I don't know if you know what that is, but it was basically a Sega Genesis, but a handheld version. So you could play like Sega Genesis games like on the road. And it had a charging cable, you know, so you could charge up the battery. And I let a buddy borrow it, and he gave it back to me, but he didn't give me the charger back. So I went over, it's like the end of the school year, summer vacation is about to start, and we're about to hit the road. I go over to his house, I ring the doorbell, his dad answers, and I say, hey, I let Sean borrow my Sega Nomad, can I get my charging cable back? And he goes, we don't let Sean borrow stuff, and he shuts the door.
God, what a give up answer. Like, I'm just not responsible for that. Get out of my house.
I laughed so hard now, but I was just so stunned because I was like, what? But I let him borrow it.
I do like that the episodes are so short.
Yeah.
I think it does lead, I think that maybe that's the double-edged sword that makes it like great because like there's not a lot of filler baloney that you have to like make up to fill out the stuff, but then also like the solutions are too tidy. Like the kids realize on their own what the right things to do are, and like the parents never really get mad. Like the pool one where Bandit just goes and he doesn't even listen to his wife about bringing the boring stuff, and then like I was like, okay, this is gonna end where it's like, okay, we're gonna have to go home because no one wanted to bring the sunscreen and the floaties and all that, and then the mom just shows up and she's not even that mad. She's just like, well, I guess the important things are important, aren't they? And she's not even mad at the husband, and the kids don't. There's no like downside for the kids. I was like, I guess that's what has to happen when it's only like 6 minutes long. But I was like, man, this isn't. There's no lesson here.
Yeah, they're not going to finish an episode of Bluey with Cobb's top spinning on the table and whether it's going to fall over or not.
Yeah.
I think that this show is something good to maybe watch with your kids as opposed to something to just put on and let your kids watch because of kind of what we're talking about, the portrayal of certain things. I would be concerned that they don't understand why Muffin should not act that way, right? Yeah. So, like, for me, I don't know that Bluey, and again, I grew up watching Tom and Jerry, and I didn't like smash people's feet or face with frying pans. So, you know. But you hear what I'm saying though? Like,
sure.
Part of me is like, I don't really like a lot of the portrayals of a lot of stuff, and other things I love. So yeah. I'm torn about this show, very much so.
Yeah, because kids definitely will repeat anything they see. And a lot of times it's completely out of context. It's just something they see and they just start repeating it, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah.
And I guess the adult analog is something like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. You're not supposed to watch It's Always Sunny and think that these are good people making good decisions and you should emulate them. Of course not. Yeah. And you hope that your viewership is intelligent enough to know that. You hope your kid is smart enough to know that Muffin is a terrible toddler and is an example of what you should not do. But, you know, ultimately people make their own decisions, and that's kind of what's wrong with people.
We had a roommate one time that we were talking about Game of Thrones, I asked him, I said, what's your favorite character? He said, oh, Joffrey. Unironically, he said, Joffrey. I was like, that makes sense. You're a horrible person. So, that's to me, I think that this is a show that watching with your preschooler is probably a great time because you can talk to them about stuff, engage with them about these little stories and, what's right, wrong, what your family rules are, stuff like that. So I think, like I said, from a sociological perspective, I think this is a great tool. But I also know that the average American family is turning this on a tablet and handing it to the kid and putting on headphones.
Oh, definitely.
So
now, there is a significant fandom of this show around the world of people who don't have children. And sometimes it's teenagers, sometimes it's college age kids, sometimes it's people it's our age who just don't have children and find something in it. And there's almost like a constant battle in the online forums between people who want to gatekeep it just for people who have kids. And then on the other side, you've got just out and out furries who are doing what furries do with stuff. So it's kind of like you have to strike a balance. But I was curious from two guys who don't have children, is like, what do you see in this show that might lead non-child peoples to identify with it so much?
I like it. I mean, it's super wholesome.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. And it's like not boring and it's not too childish. I mean, like, I guess maybe because I live in the same house as a kid, like the giggling, I guess I'm used enough to that, kind of like you are, Jay, where I was like, it didn't feel like too much. It feels like a normal amount, whereas like Aaron was like, this is too much. But
there were moments.
It's wholesome. I think probably, I'm not saying it could be therapy, but I think maybe some people that if they didn't have a great parenting life, like, I mean, they probably like that the parents are so involved and engaged with their kids and stuff and love them so much. I mean, I'm not in that group, but I could see if you were in that group, you'd be like, that you could find something there in those parents.
That just sounds like you're getting those kids set up for therapy.
That's what a lot of people say. I see people post on Reddit all the time that this show heals their inner child, they say.
I could see it.
It took me a while to come around to the show. I'm not going to lie. The first few episodes, there was a lot of eye rolling. I had to acclimate. By the end of the third season, I genuinely enjoyed aspects of the interactions and things like that. I will say this. I don't know how to evaluate this kind of situation, but in pop culture, we've had another pretty famous situation where someone who was not the intended target became a huge fan. And that is the My Little Bronies, the bros who are into My Little Pony. And this was such a huge phenomenon at the time that, there were entire brony fest where all the dudes who were into My Little Pony just got together with each other to hang out and stuff. And it was just like not for the kids. Right. So, and a lot of people thought that was weird. And, I'm not going to cast judgment on it. It's whatever you like, but gatekeeping that kind of stuff, like, it feels like it goes into the whole like culture war argument. Like, there can be people that genuinely enjoy something that maybe is not intended for them, and the reason why people don't like it is that either it breaks a gender norm or it breaks a societal norm. But like we've been talking about, we live in a time of infinite content and eternal culture, and so like if someone finds something that appeals to some part of them, an inner innocence, an inner struggle, inner turmoil, whatever it is, power to them.
Agreed.
Now, there were a couple of specific episodes that I wanted to ask your guys' opinion on. One was an episode that you mentioned earlier, Aaron, was the Army episode with Jack.
Mm-hmm.
And where people kind of seem to line up on this episode is on one side they say Jack is clearly either ADHD or autistic or a mixture of both. And a lot of times the people who say that don't like the glorification of the military that you get in that episode, where it's almost like the solution to your problem is to just join the military. While some on the other side line up and say, oh, there's nothing wrong with Jack. He's just needs some structure in his life. And of course, the military is going to provide that for him. And that's what's borne out in that episode. So I was curious what your take on that episode was.
Tony?
I didn't read that far into it. I thought it was just like showing like this kid thought he was bad at these things, and maybe he was for like ADHD reasons, but like I didn't take it as like the army being real. That's the style of game they were playing, and that was showing him that he could remember things and do all these things that he thought he wasn't good at. I didn't like take the army part of it like seriously. It's like this is the style of game they're playing, and he's like, I can't remember stuff and count good and stuff. He's like, well, you play army really well, which is like the things he said he couldn't do good. So I didn't dive too deep into it like I did with the fingers and human technology part of the show on that one.
I agree with Tony that to me growing up, I remember playing with sticks and guns, quote unquote, and playing army or soldier or whatever it was that little boys do whenever they can run around out in the woods. And again, my grandparents had 80 acres out in Louisiana that's got, creeks and woods and stuff that we could go and explore. And there wasn't anything but cows out there. So, we weren't going to get hurt.
The creek is beautiful.
As long as we stayed away from the cows. They were 2,000 pounds and we were not very large at the time. But, and so we did that kind of stuff. And so for me, army was no different than boys just playing with their imagination. And army is a, pretty male dominated structure that a lot of boys get exposed to, whether through G.I. Joes or from, parents or, TV shows, stuff like that. So that's kind of how I saw it. And I thought the army was a good way of showing how providing structure to some kids who struggle with it can help them learn ways of dealing with those issues. And so I don't think it's pro-army as much as it is pro-structure. So kind of how I agree with Tony. And I think the army is just an easy vehicle to get you to that end.
Now, the other episode I want to ask about was the most abstract, the most Lynchian, if you will, Sleepy Time. What do you think of Sleepy Time?
That was the one where Bingo was sleepwalking and the planets and all the different stuff.
Yeah.
I thought it was very well done. I thought it was very interesting. Dreams and all that stuff are very, very curious. There was a sequence, the sequence when she's sitting on the planet and it's cold. That's because she has no blanket or whatever. It always reminds me of that movie John Dies at the End, where the guy asks about the dreams. Like if you wake up and there's an explosion in your dream, you hear thunder. Like what caused the explosion? Was it your dream had the explosion and then the thunder happened, or the thunder happened and caused the explosion in your dream and you woke up from it? Like how does it? Are you dreaming that it's cold, or is it cold and it's causing you to dream? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I love those types of explorations of ideas like that. The dream world in and of itself is a great exploration of, all these different ideas and things that they had. So I loved it. I love things like that where you kind of delve into the consciousness and create representations of all the different stuff that are going on in these kids' life through the planets and stars and stuff like that. It reminded me of Rugrats. Do you remember the episode of Rugrats where like Tommy's got a fever and he's like dreaming and there's like all the different people are showing up as stars and moons and things like that.
That was trippy.
It was very trippy, but kind of same feeling, right? Like that Lynchian, weird, surreal. Things aren't Lynchian; they're just very dreamlike, and Lynch lives in a dreamlike state.
Yeah, I'll apologize. I think I missed that one on the list, so I didn't watch that one. Sorry. I did like the one where Louis dreams about being a fruit bat.
So the weed just runs all over them.
I like that dream sequence.
Yeah, that's another good one where she comes downstairs and the board game is 10 times size. Yeah,
I was like, great. What is happening? And then she's like, eating all the fruits. I like it. I don't know. It just was so funny when she would just like land upside down on everything. She went to go visit her dad playing rugby, I guess. But they called it football. They call rugby football, or they call it rugby.
Well, it's rugby football, and then there's also Australian football,
which is like American football.
Yeah, And then there's soccer football, which is soccer.
Yeah. I did not know that.
A lot of foots. A lot of balls. One last thing I wanted to bring up was the music of this show, because I think something that really sets it apart from a lot of others is that the music is 100% original, and each episode it just fits so perfectly well. I was curious if there was any episodes where the music really stood out to you.
I can't say that it stood out. I will say that it fit everything. The intro music has been cut in my head for way too long. And now I see memes, Bluey memes on the internet with the sounds, and, I get the joke now. But I do agree that every time that we were watching an episode, there was always, the music fit. There was never a time where I didn't feel like everything was just cohesive. So the show is just very well done from top to bottom. But I can't say that there was anything that stuck out specifically.
Sure, fair enough.
Yeah, I guess the thing that sticks out is I didn't ever really notice it, so I think that's a good thing. It's like it fits so well that I wasn't even aware of it, I guess.
It's very intriguing to know because, of course, the way that we've consumed this show is very different, where I've been in the room while these episodes have been on hundreds of times. And so, every once in a while something just kind of sticks out to you that you never noticed before. And it's just kind of incredible how this show has so many layers. Shall we get some ratings in?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
I will lead off here. Actually, I haven't even had a number in mind for the show because it's so difficult to quantify, because it's just, in terms of hours of my life, this show has so many of them. But I think I'd say that Bluey is an 8 show, where it's so enjoyable, it's so positive and bright and warm, and it makes me want to be a better parent. It makes me want to be a better person. And I think the world needs Bluey at this point. So Bluey's going to get 8. Oh God, what's our rating system?
Fluffies.
8 fluffies for me.
What about he was baking brownies?
Allegedly.
I read the episode description and I'm like, I hope it's something wholesome, because I'm like, Band-Aid gets in trouble for blowing a Fluffy in Bluey's face, and I'm like, okay, this has got to be something I don't know about.
And where were you on the morning of this morning?
On the morning of this morning.
Well, Tony, how many Fluffies?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think if you have kids, I think it's a perfect show if you have kids. I don't think you can feel bad. You're gonna enjoy watching it with them too, if that's what you're doing, and I don't think you'll regret them watching the show. So I was gonna say, yeah, if you're watching with kids or for your kids, I think it's a solid 8. And I liked it outside of it. I don't know if you're coming in cold outside of that environment, if it would be as high. Maybe a 7, if you're just outside of that environment. But good show. I enjoy it. I liked that it's short. I liked that it has serious moments. I really liked every time it did a little age up, flash forward, with the Jean-Luc where they're camping and growing the tree, and then kind of flash forward to him growing up. And then I think there was a couple other ones too where it kind of does a quick little montage age up, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty nice. It's I feel like they care about the story and the characters, and it's wholesome. So maybe overall I'll do a 7, but yeah, if you have kids, 8 plus fluffies.
All right, how about you, Aaron?
I'm coming in probably around a 6. There were a lot of things about the show that I actively disliked. I didn't like a lot of the portrayal of things. I didn't like the value system of not being able to tell children no. I personally, I hear people talk about, I just want to be able to engage with the fantasy of my children. I might be one of those people that just don't agree with that. I understand kids need to be kids and have time to play, but I also don't like that there's not an ability to say that there's also a time to not. I think sociologically as a society, we have to recognize that there's time to stop things. And I really was annoyed by that not being able to be portrayed in this show. I think that it sets us up for a lot of problems in the future.
I'm putting my foot down, Janelle. We're raising a nation of squibs.
I think that, seeing the people I have to deal with on a daily basis and the massive problems that we have as it is, I don't know that just being nice and expecting everyone to recognize the moral of the story is really building us a better future. So for me, like I said, I approached it from a very sociological perspective as not having kids, and I had a lot of problems with it. And I recognize the wholesome aspect. I recognize the morals and things that were good, and that's why it gets a 6. But honestly, I don't think it should be watched without parents. I don't think it should be just left on, because I do think that you could just as much get your kid turned into a muffin because it thinks that that's the proper way to act, or that they can get their way because they see that Muffin gets away with a whole lot of shit, gets the toys that she wants, you know, and everyone has to bow to her will because she's a fucking nightmare. So I come back to the show does a good job of portraying families in a lot of ways. And in a lot of ways, it also sets up a lot of portrayals that I feel like are absolutely unrealistic or don't provide a real answer to the situation. So for me, it's a 6. I don't have kids. I don't have the I guess bonding elements to evaluate. So I just don't have that. But that's just kind of how I felt. Towards the end, I felt like there was a little bit more give on some of those things, but there were other aspects that then started to come in that I didn't care for. So other things I did like. I liked that there were some pushback on some stuff, but it felt very weak. Like it felt like the Lucky's Dad's rules, you know, everyone just all of a sudden liked it. You know, like the kids all liked it, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know that that's necessarily going to happen. I just think it's good for them. like there was a lot of stuff where I was like, medicine needs to taste bad sometimes, guys. And this show misses that point, I feel. There's too many pretty pink bows in this show to make me feel like it's something that's setting up anything other than a lot of disappointment for the future. I play card games where there's a loser, you know, and you have to learn from your losses. And I think that there are people that get real salty because they don't know how to lose. They don't know how to feel bad. They don't know how to deal with adverse outcomes. And if you are constantly eliminating those from people's experiences, they're going to be 10 times worse in the future. Sometimes you have to go through little things so that you can experience heavier shit later.
Mm-hmm.
There is no dad that's buying 3 movie theater popcorns.
None.
For their bingo that's running around the theater.
I was offended by that episode. I'm not going to lie. I was offended by that episode. Like,
that's the one time I was like, I love bingo so much, but that episode I'm like, bingo, you're breaking my heart.
That is, I used to work in a movie theater, and I thought it was rude when people would bring their kids to the movie theater and like they'd be screaming and they'd be standing in the little hallway like next to. It's like, just take your kid out. Like, I'm sorry, now that we have streaming, it solves that. Yeah. That's the price you pay for having kids. You just don't get to go to the movie theater while they're that age, or have a parent or a grandparent watch them. But I'm sorry, it's just the cost of rearing children. You don't get to go to the movie theater for a while.
Don't let him near the kid. He wants to rear your child.
Well, you can go, but you do have to take your kid out and miss part of the movie. Like, that's the risk you take by taking him, that you'll have to miss part of it.
Their baby's always so ill behaved except for this time.
Hot show opinions.
I think that people who have kids is great. I think that they should be able to watch movies and stuff like that. I just think that you need to recognize, again, movie theaters used to have like times for parents. Like I remember like on like a Tuesday at like 3 p.m. or something, they would have like special times because like they knew that the people who came at 7 weren't going to be there.
Yeah, they still do that. Like Alamo does that. And yeah, no, I for the most part agree, because my kid's almost 3.5, and you think I've taken him to a movie theater yet? Hell no. No way.
I don't know how it's enjoyable for you. Like, you know? Like, I don't get this. Like, you know what? I don't want to sit at home and carry my child around and watch TV and miss half of the show. I want to do that at the movie theater.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't get that either.
Well, the rating's going to be easy to calculate.
That's true.
Yeah.
6, 7, 8?
7, 6, 7, 8. So I got a 7, which puts it, if I pull up our show master ranking, it is evenly matched with Avenue 5, Chef, and Fooly Cooley, and Watchmen, and the woman in the house across the street from the girl in the window.
We've got a real good, like, score, just like streak right there in that spot.
I really like The Watchmen. Especially that first episode. I feel like the music in that first episode was killer.
Me and Christy talked about Watchmen like a week ago, so all about those feelings are right there at the surface for me.
Well, shall we pick our next show to watch?
Absolutely. Let's see here.
So for this portion of the program, for anybody who's new to the show, we each nominate a show. We provide those to the Wheel of Randomonium. And we allow that sacred choice to be made for us by Oh Great Wheel.
And I think Jay has pointed out that like he's won like 5 of the last 6 times, so he's like really on a streak right now.
Yes, and importantly, if your show gets selected twice in a row, then you sit out selection next time. So I'm on a 1-month streak, so if I'm selected this time, I'll sit out.
So now, me and Tony have both chose the same one, so before we do that, we'll let you, Jay, describe what your show is.
Okay, I have offered a Peacock original show called Mrs. Davis. It comes from one of the favorite creators of the show, Mr. Damon Lindelof. It's a show, I haven't seen a minute of it yet. It's got a couple more episodes to wrap up this month. But I think the general plot is that it's about a nun who's battling against an evil AI. And it looks like a ton of fun.
Dude, yeah, leading with Lindelof, hey, I'm in.
No downside here for Tony.
No downside.
So we also have The Last of Us, which again, Tony, if you want to change your choice to Miss Davis, I'm not going to stop you here.
No, I'm sticking with Last of Us.
Tony, you tell us about The Last of Us, because I don't know much about it.
Well, it is. I hear it's great, which is a video game adaptation, which apparently there's not been any good ones. So apparently this is the exception, but
that's what
it's a future. It's a zombie apocalypse. Instead of a virus, I think it's a fungal infection that is turning humans into zombies. And like the game, I assume it follows the same story as basically like a journey of this older man, I think Pedro Pascal, Joel, and this young girl. He's got to get her basically across the country in this dystopian future I don't know how spoiler it is, like
to save
the human race, basically. Yeah. Like I don't think it's too big of a spoiler to say she's immune.
Yeah,
and so they want to use her biology to create a cure. And then so it's just like, it's the journey of getting her across the country. I think they're in like Boston, and they have to get her to the Pacific Northwest, I think, if I remember the game correctly.
They always have to get to the Pacific Northwest.
Like, shouldn't they be going to Georgia? Isn't the CDC in Atlanta?
Yeah, you think the CDC is going to be the first ones to fall? They're going to bring samples back, man.
Isn't that a big thing in The Walking Dead, though?
Yeah.
I
think they're trying to get stuff to Atlanta in The Walking Dead. Or they're in Georgia already. Are they already in Georgia in The Walking Dead? I stopped watching that so early, it just got ridiculous.
Yeah, I got through like 2-3 episodes and stopped. So
anyway, I think it's more than just like Walking Dead killing zombies. It's more of like the bond between, or the developing bond between Joel. Yeah, it's like Joel and this girl Ellie, like developing a bond for going from like obviously strangers and not liking each other to developing like.
People have raved about it, so I've also put my lot in with Last of Us. Shuffle it up, and then here we go.
Spin to win.
You're a bush wee, and I'm a whatever they call number 2.
Let's spin the McConaughey wheel.
All right, that's me, Last of Us.
The Last of Us.
What were the odds?
2/3.
Wait, I've been excited. I've been wanting to see it. I just, I mean, that spur. I did watch the pilot or the premiere, so I'm one episode in. I'm ready to.
I've literally seen nothing, so I'm excited to go in.
Yeah, I think I've seen 2, and then my lady wife tapped out, and sometimes it's kind of like launching a nuclear missile from the submarine. You both have to turn your key on the show.
Yeah, I got you. I've got me and Christy watch a lot of shows together, but there's a couple of shows that I'm just like, not my bag. All you, girl, you get after it.
You're caught between. She probably doesn't really want to watch it, but if you were to watch it without her and get ahead of her, it'd be not good.
The funny thing is, like, whenever I start a show she doesn't like, and then 2-3 episodes in, I'm like, this is really good. She's like, well, now I want to watch it. So you got to go back.
All right.
Marty!
We got to go back.
We got to go back.
Well, I'm looking forward to a lot more Doc Brown impressions next week, talking about The Last of Us. I want to thank our executive producer, Dick Wolf. I want to thank my co-hosts. Thank you, Aaron.
You're welcome.
And thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
I will be seeing you guys next time for The Last of Us, and until then, I will see you in the trees.
Don't think you have seen the last.